Hey there, Wargamers, Justin Painter, and today we're going to get a little bit of hobby time in. I'd like to welcome you guys back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in today. I appreciate you being here. If you are new, please alpha strike that like and subscribe button. If you're a returning viewer, though, thank you for having my six. I appreciate you being an awesome lance mate, star mate, whatever the case may be for you. I appreciate you being here to support what I do. That said, today we're going to be doing some little bit of hobbying here. I've had some videos going up on the channel where I've been working on minis. At the time of recording, this hasn't gone up yet, but it will have gone up by the time you hear it. The video where I did the little, almost kind of podcast segment with Dan Pigclone, and we talked about list building for Alpha Strike. Today we're going to be coming back to doing some painting. So I do have a commission on my desk. We're going to do a quick little bit on that today, and then we're going to be working on some Steel Rift minis. So I'm working on the Skaven Bros for a commission for Jason Murray from Battletech podcast. You may know him as Tabled Noob. I still do some work for him. I don't do a lot of commissions because I find it stresses me out. So there's a very select handful of people that I will work with, and he is one of them. I think right now I've got maybe 4 people that I'll do stuff for, just because I can't take the stress that some people put onto that. AKA, like, I'm not going to do big batch painting anymore, usually, and I'm not going to do, what was I going to say? I don't do well with deadlines. If you have a reasonable deadline, I'll try and meet it, but like if it's unreasonable, then I just don't want to do the project. And whoever I work with has to be willing to accept the fact that I might not meet a deadline, because I have real life to deal with, you know. So that's what it is. I just don't do it very often. But today, I'm working from home for my day job at Death Ray Designs, and I finished early, and I spoke with my boss and said I think it might be cool if I work on making some forward progress on my Steel Rift minis for the custom faction that I'm pitching. They may not become official, but I am working diligently to try and get them to a point where they can be considered official, and these are my Republic Independent Security Corps forces that I've been working on, or at least that is the working name that I have for them, and we'll see if that is subject to change. So we're going to go ahead and grab a couple of our water bottle lids. This is one way that it's not necessarily recycling, but sort of recycling, where I get double use out of these. Drinking, water bottles. I'll save these and I'll use them as mixing caps for paint swashes or my medium that I like to use. So that is a good thing to do. If you drink water bottles, save your caps. Cool thing. So that said, today to get things started, I need to get my desk a little bit more organized because I have little battle bros all over the desk, and I need to get them positioned in such a way that I can throw a wash down on the legs, and then while that dries, I could come in and dry brush on these a little bit now that their bases have dried, because they're using the same kind of colors. So for that, I'm going to shake up some of our ink here, and I like to use Opulentus Black. And I'll usually do 80% black to 20% blue, or a 4 to 1 ratio rather. So 4 to 1 equals 5 drops. 4 out of 5 is 80%. So 80% black to 1%, or 20% blue. And then the ratio from here is, you know, kind of subject to whatever you want. If you're doing this, I like to get this a little bit more runny, so. So a 7, I'll usually do like a 2 to 1 with this mix, so 3 drops of this. The other day I did it 1 to 1 to 1, where that kind of medium that I used there, glazing medium type stuff, it was just a little too thick. It still worked fine, but it was just a little too thick for my liking, so I like it to be a little bit more thin or runny, and that medium stuff doesn't quite. I like to use it, but I have to cut it with some water because it's a little thick, which is fine depending on what you're using it for, but I like it to go on like super thin. So I feel like a little bit more water, a little less of the magic mix. It's good to go. So this has a very light hint of blue to it, and I like that pretty well. So I'm going to come in here, and we're just going to wash our little leggy bros, and that'll tone these down quite nicely, give us a little definition here. And then we can come in for a final dry brush on them, and manual edge highlights from there if we so choose. So, and if I don't do a lot of rambling today, we'll see how my video goes for you guys. We'll cut in a little bit of music, a little bit of background tunes. I hope that you guys are doing well. My goal here is to put out some content where you guys get to kind of throw on something in the background, have somebody there to be like your hobby wingman. Oftentimes in life, especially because my audience, based on the statistics that YouTube gives me, are like in their mid-30s is where the skew is. So not old, but not young. We don't have a bunch of youngins in here at 18 years old. I'm sure there's a few of you, and I appreciate you being here. But because the statistics are telling me that my audience is in a similar age bracket to me, I assume you're in a similar time constraint as to me. And with everyone out there adulting, working, school, kids, whatever, it can be hard sometimes to connect with your friends, to be able to get that hobby time in that you want. Real life happens, schedules happen. Hell, it's hard to even, it's almost a meme at this point, trying to coordinate D&D sessions and things like that, so let alone trying to coordinate a hobby session or play some war games. So my thoughts are with this series, and I'll probably keep reiterating because I ramble, are to put out some type of content where you guys may be able to tune in and, if you can't get that hobby wingman in real life, you can throw me on in the background, listen to me ramble, listen to some of the royalty-free music we'll put on, and just jam out. Kind of feel like you've got that person in the background with you while you're hobbying, and I feel like for me, that helps get me motivated. Playing games helps me get motivated to paint, and having somebody who is excited about painting and wants to do that with me or talk about it with me helps get me excited to paint too. So I'm kind of hoping that might translate over for you guys. We'll see. If it doesn't translate over for you, then you might just exit the video. If it does translate over for you, then perhaps you'll stick around, hit the subscribe button, and enjoy what we're doing here, what I'm trying to grow on the YouTube. And what I'm trying to grow on the YouTube is kind of random at this point, if I'm honest. I've done some tutorials, I've done some unboxings, I've done some battle reports, I've done this style of content. Honestly, just kind of trying to do what makes me feel good, that I think might resonate with you guys and make you feel good. The overall polish is sometimes high, sometimes low, but at the end of the day, I'm broadcasting a light into the darkness for an audience, however large or small it may be. I'm connecting with someone, and if even at least one person hears this and they feel good, I feel like maybe my time was well spent, We live in a world sometimes where we're all interconnected with our internet every day. We have a supercomputer in our pockets, we have social media. Despite how connected we are, we're kind of still disconnected from people. And I push on my channel, I push in real life, for people to look beyond the surface and the obvious. And in regards to wargaming, that is, there's more to this gaming that we're doing than just winning. There's more to it than the mechanics and the rules. There's this social contract for you to be able to sit down and blow up tiny little toy soldiers. Someone else has to agree to sit down to try and blow up your tiny little toy soldiers. So remembering that, like, there's another person behind the army over there on the other side of the table, and you're playing with and against them. It's kind of the philosophy I bring to the channel here, to cast that light into the darkness and let people know, like, you're not alone. Like, we're on a team. We're all in this hobby together. We enjoy these interests together, and keeps people. I don't know. It feels like my way of trying to connect in a world that's so connected but disconnected. If that makes sense, we're so like stuck in our phones, stuck in ourselves, our own lives, that we forget that there's beauty around us. There's other people around us. There's things that aren't the obvious. And now we're getting on one of those Justin level rambles, but that's kind of where my brain goes. And I try and bring that over into minis too. It's been a while. It might have been when I was still Twitch streaming. I don't remember. But I talked about like paint concepts and blending colors and trying to, get used to doing that. And one of the things that you could do to see it in real life and try and get inspiration, and I was basically getting taking the inspiration from all around you, was like watch a sunset or a sunrise on your way to work or your way home from work, depending on if you drive into work, or depending on your time frames, and look at the skyline as, especially I notice this because I get off at 5 and I'm driving home between 5 and 6, and especially now that fall's setting in, you're starting to get the sunset a little earlier. Days are getting a little shorter, we start to see that sunset a little sooner, and you start to see that transition in the skyline. You've got like the oranges, the pinks, the blues. You know, when you ask a kid what color's the sun, oh, yellow, oh, orange, whatever. And then you look at a sunset, and it's like, well, depending on where you're at, you know, the cloud cover, the weather, you know, all those things, like that sun may look very different in the sky as it blends, especially as it sets. And it's so interesting to look at a sunset and realize, like, yeah, if you were going to paint this, you're going to need yellows, orange, pinks. You're going to need blues, almost blue-gray. And then, like, right before the sun crests the other side of that horizon and you lose it for the next, 12 hours or so, 8 hours, whatever it is, you get that moment where you've got the oranges, the pinks, the reds, the yellows, and then as it fades, it goes into like the almost blues, blue-grays, and then like almost black-blue. Like sometimes you may even be starting to see stars come out as the sun is setting. And that's such an interesting juxtaposition, right? To see all that at one time. And when you start thinking about like, oh, hey, what if I want to do that color on the canopy of a mech? And you start thinking about blending those, and that's kind of what I was getting at. But we forget sometimes to see the beauty in nature. We forget sometimes that like the techniques that we're doing on one thing can apply to another, even if that other medium that we're working with, that canvas we're working on, is a little different. The concepts, the ideas can translate over. And I think it's really interesting to talk about or encourage people to try and see the beauty in nature, even in the mundane, because you're going to see the sun every day usually. You're going to see the same things all the time, but what is there beyond the surface? Much like talking about in gaming, remembering there's more to gaming than just winning. There's another person on the other side of that table that is trying to do the same things. It's much like that with nature. Like, yes, there'll be a time in the life cycle of the universe that, yes, there will be a final sunrise. It is going to happen. Our planet's not going to have another one. One day, we'll all be gone, probably. Hopefully humanity hasn't killed itself off by then. Hopefully we figured out a way to, traverse the cosmos, which is what one can hope. Perhaps it's a naivety on my part, but that's what I like to think. But for now, in our infinitely small lifetimes, that until your last breath, that like, yes, the sun will rise tomorrow. Yes, this is going to happen today, tomorrow. These things, we take them for granted, and you start to be like, I don't know, I guess what I'm getting at is like sometimes the spectacle, the wonder that is nature that we see every day, it loses its fantastic, beautiful nature because we see it and we just assume it will always be there, and then we get used to it every day and we forget to appreciate it and think about what we're seeing. And then I feel like the more I have delved into art, the more I try and take inspiration from nature. When I see it, I don't always actively go out and seek it, but when I see it, I'm like, hey, interesting. I never looked at a sunrise the way that I do now until I started painting, because I actually thought about what goes into that. And obviously it's light waves and, all that stuff. But the same kind of concept of like, if I want to recreate this myself, what colors would I have to use? What would I have to do? And then that makes what seems like a mundane thing just not very mundane anymore. And I feel like that is one of the beauties you can find in nature, and it's also one of the beauties you can find in minis. You may play wargaming. You may wargame a lot or hardly at all. But if you play a lot, you may play with the same people. It may get repetitive. It may get a little bit mundane. Look beyond the surface. If that starts to happen, like, are you missing something? Is that person you're playing with, like, are you missing an opportunity to foster a better friendship if it's a pickup game with someone that you're not very good friends with? Is this someone who's new that you've been dumpster dunking, and maybe you could bring them under your wing and teach them and coach them? Like, there's so much more you could do with the activities you're doing if you try and find reasons to see beyond what's just on the surface. And I think that's something we could all take a moment to appreciate and think about, if that makes sense. And I know I'm a little bit on a soapbox here, but this is kind of where these videos are going to go. It's going to be a little rambly, hopefully not too preachy. But yeah, that's kind of the point, giving you guys something to listen to in the background. Also, I got my coffee here, caffeinated. Been a while since I had warm coffee. I drink a lot of cold coffee. That said, as we continue on today, how are all of you? What are you doing? What What hobby projects are you getting into? Are you struggling to get motivated? If so, what's got you down? What's bugging you? What's sapping your hobby motivation? If you are particularly inspired, what's got you inspired? What's that thing that's giving you the muse? Maybe we can help inspire someone who's in a hobby funk to pick up their paintbrushes or grab their glue, their snips and X-Acto blades and build some models or paint some models. Or perhaps just inspire someone to try something new. So knowing what you're working on is good. You could sit here and stare at me paint for the next hour, hour and a half, and that's fine. But I assume that you might be working on something of your own, or maybe that topic resonates with you. Maybe you are sitting here and you're thinking, this guy's talking to me. Like I'm maybe envious, and I don't want you to be. I want you to know that I think you can paint. Everyone can paint. Everyone can do stuff. Whether you feel like you're going to be super good at it, or you just want to be good enough because you just want to paint and not stress over quality. You just want to enjoy it. There's an avenue for you, and maybe you feel like maybe you're one of those people who's watching. You're like, hey, this guy is talking to me. Like I'm in a hobby funk. I'm struggling to find motivation, or I'm new and I'm afraid. And this is a place where I could tell you, don't be afraid. Let's get you out of that hobby funk. Let's get you trying to pick up paintbrushes and do something that you're going to enjoy. I will tell you, if you're struggling to get into it, try and find micro goals, find small things to work on, especially I feel like if you're probably struggling to paint, some of that is probably because you're batch painting. And if you're not batch painting, perhaps you're allowing your real life struggles, anxieties, or worries to bleed through. This is a place where you have complete control. I choose this color. I choose his color here. I choose his composition. I choose his battle damage. I could choose to slam this guy on the desk right now and break him if I wanted to. I wouldn't, but I could. This is a place like Bob Ross. This is your world. You're the creator. This is your miniature, your world, your creation. You have total control here. No matter what's going on in your life, if work's got you down, or relationships got you down, life's got you down, this is somewhere where you could go to exercise your mind, to paint minis, have that cathartic release, and know that you control this. This is your little universe. How infinitesimally, I'm saying that wrong, how infinitely small it might be, you have control over this for that moment. So when you sit down, just know that you're forging, you're crafting that narrative, that story of your own. And I think that also that philosophy makes the painting mean more. And that is because not only do I have control over this, how he's built his overall composition, I have control of the theater of the mind. What story is unfolding? What do I envision this guy's doing? What is he shooting at? Where is he deployed? What's the pilot's name? What battles has he taken part in? What accolades has he achieved? Is this a representation of a soldier or a pilot who was alive at this point in this particular battle that I've plucked this from, but he's no longer with us in my story, in my headcanon? What is that? And that's interesting. One thing that I like to tell people when they do this is, if you ever seen the movie as a kid, and if you're in my age bracket here at 35 to 40, or mid-40s, you've probably seen Indian in the Cupboard. I like to tell people when they're painting and they're struggling to think about these guys like the film Indian in the Cupboard. If you were to have that magic cupboard in your life, in this realm, this physical plane, and I was to toss this HEV into that cupboard, lock it, and open it again, what would come out? Would it be hostile? What would it envision the pilot of this HEV is? Given this magical little cupboard we're locking this thing into and then opening up. That's what's interesting. You are creating that universe, and there's no such cupboard. It isn't real. We're never going to find one. But that doesn't mean you can't forge a narrative or forge a story of your own, such that perhaps in some other realm, some other universe type thing, some other dimension, maybe that cupboard is real. Maybe it does exist. Perhaps there's a kid right now who has found said cupboard in that universe, and they have found an interesting little HEV. Perhaps it's one you painted, and we don't know how it got there, because our universes collided. But he found it nonetheless. It's a little toy he picked up, and he tosses that toy, or she tosses that toy into the cupboard, locks it, and opens it, and your creation comes out. You have forged that narrative, that fluff that's broadcast into the ether, into the in-between realms between what it is to be alive right now and what it is to be in that mind of yours. You've created this thing, and it's there. It exists. You have thought it, therefore it is there. What if that popped up in another universe? So you're creating this headcanon, this story, this fluff, this piece, this mini that means something to you, and it may only ever mean something to you But think about what that story would be if you were sharing it with someone else. And that's what I like to think of when I play war games. We're sharing that story with another person. That other person is, for a brief moment, clashing with our minis. Our minis, our passion, our hobby, our story has collided on that tabletop. All of the ideas I put into my minis are coming to fruition as they clash with yours, and we are forging this story, this narrative together, this battle. This may be the only time we ever play together and play with these minis, and for that moment we are forging a narrative, a story that will live on so long as we remember it. Those dice rolls are going to fall the one time in that game if you're only playing with this person once. They may never fall the same way again. What story, what narrative, what battles were forged for you? And that's why I harp so much on people not getting so bogged down in the competitive win-lose of the game, because then I feel like we lose sight of the minis, the passion, the story, what drives this hobby. Like, why the hell why am I slaving over painting these? Why am I slaving over creating this universe in my head if the focus of this game is only to win, if it's only to roll dice, if it's only to play that? Why even have these minis that we play with have customization? Why have these cool freaking sculpts like this? Like this, where else are we going to have a rat-toting Gandalf crystal with crazy smoke in the side of a sewer, ringing his bell, hoping to find some turtles? Where are we going to have that, right? And what's the point of it if the minis don't matter, if the fluff doesn't matter, if the story doesn't matter? At that point, we could just play with trading cards. We could play Magic the Gathering. We could play a video game. And I bring up video games because I like RPGs where, again, you get to forge that narrative, that story for you. But you're limited. You're on that path. You're in that book, that story that someone set forth for you to interact with. And you do get to live in that moment for a bit, interact for a bit, but you're on rails, so to speak. When it comes to minis, yes, the canvas may be provided for you, and you may be able to manipulate it in such a way that you like the way that canvas looks that you're going to paint on. That is true. But you get to create that headcanon, whereas a video game, you play through the story that they provide, right? It's like the difference between D&D and playing a D&D video game, which I haven't played Baldur's Gate yet. I've heard the story's great, but still, you have a set story. Every time you sit down to play D&D with your friends and your DM, that story can shift or change on the boom, like on a dime, just flip and switch there, right? That's where these guys are different than video games. That's why this is so much more important to me than just playing a game. What's that story? The game is a small part. You are going to spend infinitely more time building, painting, and collecting your minis than you will playing. And some people are probably going, Justin, that's wrong. And I challenge you to consider what's going to happen when one day you can't play games anymore. What's going to happen if you can't make it to the shop? What's going to happen if your friends move away? These minis you forged narratives with, the stories, the hobbies, the time you spent with it, those still remain. You carry that with you. You will still have these minis. When you look at the minis, I want you to remember painting. I want you to remember the story. I want you to remember the emotions, good, bad, or otherwise, that were flowing through you when you painted. I want you to remember playing with your friends and having a good time. You carry that with you long after the dice have fallen and gone cold, long after your friends have gone on and done other things with their lives. You still have that story. Playing the game is a small portion of that. You may play games every day, but there'll come a time where you can't. You still have these minis. You can still build minis. You can still forge narratives. You can still do something with this, and you always have that with you. And that's what I want people to know. It's what I want you to do. I implore you to take that into consideration and know that there's more to this than just blowing up your opponent and dunking them to make yourself feel good, because that it's hollow. You get that experience, the one match, but it's like chasing a dopamine dump. That first win you get, it's going to be that rush, that thrill, that's good. The second one, it's less and less and less, and you're chasing it. And if your only focus is on the win, you may get like kind of addicted to that, to where it's never quite enough, and then you need more of a win and more of a win and more of a win. And then I challenge you to ask yourself, what is the point? What is this? It's like watching a sports thing where for some players, some of the greatest players, the money wasn't the focus. They've taken pay cuts because they wanted to build a better team around them, right? And at that point, obviously the money, they were already rich. I get that, but they could be more rich, but they stopped chasing that because the passion of the game, the growth, the end, the finish line there was more important than everything else. And that's what I challenge people with minis. The finish line, the ultimate enjoyment, the fluff, the story is way more important than just beating somebody. So I know I hound on that a lot, but I think that the majority of the people that come to my channel, this probably resonates with them. If it doesn't, you're probably not currently listening to this, or you're listening to this and you're typing away and you want to rage on me, and that's okay too. But I do think that there needs to be more messages like this on the internet, more people that go to events with this attitude, because I played Warhammer 40K for over a decade and I loved that game. I loved the lore and the fluff. The competitive nature of that game and the people it brought out killed it for me. I would spend 20 hours painting a character. At the time, I mixed and matched parts, made all these custom Space Marines, only for somebody to walk in with a rattle can primered Flavor of the Month army, stomp on me. Then they lose a game when the next codex comes out. They sell the army, buy a new army, spray it one color, play with it until that army's not good anymore, and then they do it over again and over again and over again. And it's soulless, and it's not fun. For them it may be, but it's chasing the dragon there. You're never going to quite get it every time. But I forge that narrative, that fluff, and then I sit down to play a story where I'm prepped to have that game, that experience with people. And then they come in, and I'm going to say this as funny as I can. I sit down to have a serious roleplay session, and they Ronald McDonald clown shoe their asses up to the table and dumpster dunk me. And that's okay, they win, but like the story didn't happen. I spent all that time painting, and their view of what was fun for the game did not line up with mine. And I think that that's unfortunate. We can all like what we want from a game, but it's unfortunate that in my local meta, at the very least, it was all about the winning. And you would see this rotation of armies based on what was good, and then frustration when an army wasn't good. And I get it, but like, if you spend all that time forging a narrative, then the rules are going to come and go. Those minis remain, right? And that's one of the things that drove me away from 40K. There's still minis out I want to paint. I want to paint Mortal. I want to get the new Farsight model, paint him. I want to get Lionel Johnson because he's a freaking Dark Angel, and that's my boys. My passion for that universe and that game was sapped from me because I couldn't forge those narratives with people like I wanted to. It makes me sad, almost borderline emotional, because I want to sit down and I want to play a game with someone, and I want to envision the battle and the plasma guns going off and the clash of our power swords and my crisis suits just pew, landing. I want to envision this story unfolding. And then the other person on the other side of the table for me was so wrapped up in the rule book and the metagaming and the whatever the data cards were and all that stuff, that like I could have sat down with a couple of peanuts with googly eyes on it, put on a base, and they wouldn't have cared. And that hurts me at my core. And so I shifted to other games like Battletech. I feel like this game is in a position where it's malleable right now, and we as a community can come together and make something more, right? And that's why I dove into this, because I feel like I can inject some of that passion, that fluff, that lore into this game and this community and try really hard. It's hard to break into 40K anymore, but there's still prime opportunity where Battletech can pivot course and not become what 40K gaming community became. So, and one of the things I did to help combat that when I lost the ability to forge a passion and a narrative with 40K, I started painting busts and stuff. And I only paint usually like one a year, and that one bust a year, and I hate saying this too, but if you're listening to this, then like you're probably one of the super supporters, one of the 5 people who watches my videos. Almost every time I paint a bust, I'm going through something emotional mentally, and this is where I can pour myself into creating something. And this guy's called to me, and I don't know why. He just looks so freaking cool. I've had him for a few years now, and I just haven't worked on him. He's next up on my desk, and sometimes you feel peaks and valleys with your emotions, but this is a way where I can forge this cool guy, and I can pour everything into him. And then when I look at him on that shelf, because hopefully I haven't done an Entered at Nova, that's where I always take that emotional passion and I put it on display, because I want to show people, whether they feel the way that I did or not, this is my way of encapsulating and capturing how I felt, good, bad, or otherwise, and taking that away from myself and putting it on display for others. And what they feel may be different, but I took that moment in time and encapsulated it. And if it was a bad moment, I cathartic release experience, like put it into this mini, and I took it away from me. I was able to siphon it out and put it on something else, so I didn't feel exactly that way anymore. And if I was feeling good, I was able to inject some happiness onto a piece, because hopefully someone else will feel that, right? So like there's a lot that goes into this, and I think shifting your perspective of painting beyond just getting minis on the table, even if you are just getting them on the table, think about like, what that means to you, right? This should be more to it, especially in a hobby that's so expensive. Like, I have some crazy amount of money in paints and models, and if all I cared about was just the playing, like, what's the point? Like, why would I have all the stuff that I do? And I'm aware that you guys in YouTube land may have different views, and you may have a different amount of stuff at your disposal for painting, but I still challenge you. Find more for your hobby than just beating down on people. That said, we've got our washes down on our HEVs, and we're going to come in here, and while those are drying, we're going to grab our little dry brush here, and we're going to try and target some of these bases with some of our bright neutral gray. And is this another one? No, it's bright warm gray. And try and lighten up the edges just a smidge. And then hopefully at that point, by the time we are done with this, am I running low on this? Is it about, okay, cool. I know that bottle's about empty. Hopefully by the time we are done with this extra dry brush step, our HEVs will be ready for us to dry brush too. And we're going to hit a little bit of the pond here because I'm going to come back in for a little bit of one more neon green pass, so those peaks will be just ever so slightly brighter when we come back in for that. So not a big deal. And same thing here, we're going to come in and do some rusty stuff on that grate there later. And this guy's super cool. He's so cool looking. That's one unfortunate thing with the community driving me out. Unfortunately, with Games Workshops, they have such beautiful minis. But I found Legion, which I've barely touched. I've got 2 armies. I got a third one that I'm kind of building on. I just don't get to play much. That's one of the things that's a little depressing, is the more older I have gotten, the harder it's been. I talked about this at the beginning of the video. Harder it's been to connect with my friends. And then your friends come and go. And your hobbies don't always change. But that's another reason I've kind of tried to get into painting busts, because like I can paint these wargame minis, but it's hard to find groups to play with, especially ones that are interested in playing the way I'm interested in playing, or, and more commonly, or they're so invested in GW games and IP, it's like sunk costs that they're unwilling to try other stuff, and I just can't buy into that gaming ecosystem anymore. I can't do it. I might trade stuff to get minis, but I just can't invest money. It's so expensive, and then I find the community to have some toxicity to it. And that's me judging all of GW products, which is erroneous, if I'm honest, because it's not. I think 40K is the problem. It's just the way that it is. I think, because I'm currently painting some Underworlds, or whatever they're calling it now, Shadespire or something. I imagine the community for this is probably way more tame than 40K, and this is much cheaper and easier to approach, but it's like being addicted to a drug. If I went back to GW proper games, I feel like I would find it so hard to not want to look at Games Workshops, or not Games Workshop. I'd find it hard not to look at 40K stuff, you know. We've already been there. It's been going for a long time. Of course I'm going to be interested in looking at it again, you know. And I just don't need that temptation, right? And I'm also into playing enough games, so I want to try and like focus a little bit, you know. So, but yeah, I imagine a lot of my audience here skews either just friends of mine or people who are into Battletech. But sound off in the comments below if you're enjoying the rambles, you think I'm full of shit, or you enjoy the rambles and I think I'm full of shit. Sound off in the comments below. Let me know. Like, the chatting, I think, is healthy. It's important. Knowing other people's views is important. Alright, so our little bro here looks, I think, mostly dry, so we're going to come in and carefully get some dry brushing going on. wet spots on them, so I'm trying to be careful to limit hitting those, because if you do, you'll immediately like streak stuff. So I'm trying to be careful not to do that. Yeah, I kind of did it on his feet, unfortunately. They were still wet. I'm impatient, and my hair dryer's outside in the other paint section. I've been trying to airbrush outside and not in the new room, so... Yeah, so this is why I've come and gone from trying to do content creation. I get down sometimes, and it's hard. Sometimes I feel like I'm broadcasting a light into the darkness to try and help others feel good, and then sometimes I don't feel good myself. And then it feels almost at that point like you're talking to darkness, and it can be hard. But I'm trying really hard to keep my motivation up, because I do think, as I'd said, I feel like we need more content like this. If it makes me feel good and I can make you feel good, that's what I want to do. And I'm trying so hard to keep up, and sometimes it's difficult to keep content flowing, especially the battle reports. Like, finding people to play with is hard. Scheduling time with them is hard. Making sure that people you're playing with have the same views on the game that you do, so that whatever video you put out is going to be received well. Like, you don't want to bring someone else out who's not going to have the same idea of fun as you. And I've had that happen. I've had an Infinity game happen where I got dumpster dunked and it was awful and I learned nothing and it looked very awkward. And then I had one where I made one good play during a Battletech, Warhammer 40k game, and my opponent went outside and literally screamed. And then the next turn when he came in and calmed down, he tabled me. I did one good thing right, and I got tabled because he was a better player and had a better list. And it's like, it's not okay, man. Like, it's okay, like. And that's why it's hard to get people out to do battle reports. Not only is the pool small, but like finding people who are going to have similar views and not rage. And it's like, yeah, everyone wants to win. I like to win, but like, at what cost? And I've tried really hard to shift my perspective. Jason from the Battle Melt podcast said to me once that these guys are still kind of wet. I think we're going to shift while they dry. Because it's hard. Sometimes you get in the heat of the moment. I'm guilty of this too. I've called myself out on a video a few months back with John where like I felt like I wasn't broadcasting or projecting the view of myself that I wanted. And I was like, sorry guys, I got a little too wrapped up in the game. I got too frustrated. And that spawns from me and John having played games against each other for years. I know how he's going to play. He knows how I'm going to play. We have a pretty good idea of the decisions we're going to make. And then we fall right back into that competitive rut where it's not as fun. We're thinking because we played against each other to practice so much. So trying to break that cycle can be a little difficult. Take a moment to sip of coffee here. But, Jason from Battle Mal had said to me once, he said, Justin, that person you're playing with, they try and rejoice and be excited when they win or when something good happens for them, which is really hard to do. And my boss Austin does this. He'll cheer when crazy shit happens, which is a little bizarre sometimes because it's his model will get headshot or something and he'll cheer for his opponent, and it's bizarre. But he's just excited. And to Jason's point that he made to me, he's like, this person, man, that just really just shot out there. This may be the first time they've ever won a game, the first time things have gone right for them. And then you're over here, being a Sadie McSatterston, and you're being derpy, and you're being a Debbie Downer, and then that saps the other person who's having a good game, and like, for no fault of their own, they're doing well, and you're bringing it down. And he was like, so try and be excited for them. And hope that they're excited for you, because you never know what they're going through. You don't know what the state of their mind is and their gameplay is. Like, don't don't be someone who's taking away from someone else's enjoyment to try and add to it. And that's kind of what he was getting at. And like that opened my eyes to perspective. It made me really think about it. So it's hard. So sometimes right before I play in a battle report, I'll try and tell myself like, hey, try and remember to have fun. Try and remember to be excited for them. You know, this game is meant to be fun for both of you. I literally tell myself that and try and remind myself to like stay on target, because sometimes it's hard. And we are playing a game, and you do want to win, and it is in our nature when we play a game to play to win. But just remember that there's more to it. So it does take some effort. And, you know, Jason said that to me once, and that really resonated with me, and it's stuck because that was such a wise thing to say. And from someone who plays some games competitively and was one of my commission clients, he said this to me, and it's like, nah, man, that's right. You right. And I've always carried it with me, and I've tried to live up to those words, and I don't always succeed, but I do try. And it's in human nature to fail. It is what we do. It's just how you pick yourself up and try and do better next time. That's just the way it is, you know. And that's what I try to do. And in regards to these little minis, these little battle bros, we're coming in here to box in some edge highlights and stuff. I don't know how much time we got left on my allotment for today's session. I was going to aim for the hour and a half mark, and I think we're getting very, very close, I think. I think that's probably about what's palatable for people, like time investment wise. You know, probably about the hour and a half time frame. 2 hours probably been much. So I'm not sure how far we're going to get along, but I wanted to kind of just get some concepts down for where I want to go with these minis here. And after the dry brush, you can come in with that same color and start working on edge highlights, because the edge highlights are going to be much more intense, like pigment allocation. Like it's going to go on a lot more opaque versus the dry brush that was very thin, like top surface layer stuff. So this is a really good way to get kind of a fade and then edge highlight too, because like that's a little darker than over here, and so you can kind of manipulate your way into some interesting like transitions pretty easily. That's what I like to do. Yep. Had a little mess up there. Hopefully those other minis will dry soon enough so that I can dry brush before our paint dries or we run out, because I feel like that pot is just about empty. I feel like I've rambled pretty good in this video. Might not get a lot of sped up time and music stuff going on, we'll see. But I think I've done a pretty good job trying to ramble. Try and keep it entertaining for you guys. That's my goal. And this right here is why some of my minis take so long to paint, because I will spend some crazy amount of time like edge highlighting and shit. It is a thing that I will 100% do. But again, it brings us back to the notion that you're gonna spend more time doing everything else of these minis other than playing. Playing is just a small part of it, so I try and forge the narrative and create stuff that I think looks neat. That's kind of my goal. be able to see kind of the difference between this leg and like that one. Really just helps bring it all together. And normally I would do like a 2-stage highlight. Where's my neutral gray? It's dark warm gray. Do I not have neutral gray on my desk? That seems like a mistake. Do I have it down here? I do. I would usually do like a neutral gray, which is so very close. So probably like a neutral gray mixed 1-to-1 with a bright neutral or 2-to-1 bright neutral, and then do a secondary highlight. But trying to prevent myself from having to basically highlight these guys twice. All depends on how much time you want to invest in your particular piece. So we're getting there on this fella. Getting there. Probably try and finish his edge highlights, do the dry brushing, then we'll do a couple of quick test jade highlights because I want to see how they're going to look, and then we'll probably wrap it up. So this video might be closer to the 1.5-hour session. We'll see. Take a little sip of this coffee. Sometimes you got to make decisions with where you want your highlights to be, because this is kind of coming from one direction, but then you want like both of your you want your areas to have highlights on it, so that when you're playing your game, like the model looks fine from other angles. So you kind of have to fudge it a little bit sometimes. Sometimes I guess maybe I get melancholic when I paint. Yeah, that's another reason I like the idea of broadcasting something to you guys, is so that you don't feel that way. But I do like the idea that if this helps even one person, it's worth it, you know. But also knowing that, like, if I was to quit tomorrow, these videos are still up there, and if someone somewhere rambles or stumbles over them, you know, it's still out there, and I think that's pretty neat. Kind of feels like you're trying to focus on putting good out in the universe, you know? And that's not always easy, but it's kind of what it feels like, and that's pretty neat. And you guys that are still here, kind of along for that ride with me, your comments here, other people will see, and I think it's pretty neat. And I'm aware that I just described the internet to you, but the internet has its dark corners and things that are toxic and not healthy, and I think this kind of thing is healthy. It is good. I also apologize if the audio is a little funky. I don't have the new microphones I've been borrowing for work, so the audio here may not be quite as crisp, but hopefully still suitable, we hopes. And some of these areas that I'm highlighting may get may have their colors like vetoed. I may box them in with something else because I'm seeing some areas on this foot or his side of his leg that like I may come in and like make like that part black. I think that'd be nice. Just like a little panel, it's encapsulating something. Break up some of that gray. I think that may be a route that I take. We'll see. And then we're obviously going to try and lay down some decals. I've got Austin tinkering on a logo for me for my custom faction idea. So we'll see what he comes up with for that. And that'll be cool. And oops, sorry. We'll have some like hazard stripes and probably like a number on there and things like that too. So it'll break up some of what we got going on here. But I think for the most part, that's probably pretty alright. And you can see like the juxtaposition between like these two. And this still looks pretty good, but the edge highlights really like take it to that next level, I think. Alright, so like on this guy, this big old boy. So let's get just a little bit here. And this one will be a pretty easy one to do. So we're going to hit the edge of this leg because it's a nice crisp highlight or crisp panel. And so now you can see like that leg versus the bottom, you know, and like over here, just that little highlight, just it brings it together. So that's kind of what we're working on. That said, I do want to get the rest of that dry brush going before my paint here dries and before we end today. So let's go ahead, and these guys look like they should be dry enough now, or at least closer. So we'll try and get a little dry brush action going on. And these are, I think they're called Wet n Wild makeup brushes from Amazon. They are dirt cheap, and I tell you folks, they are the secret sauce. They are so good. We use a lot of them at work. I use them very frequently when I'm working on stuff, including on some of my like camo spec stuff, like my good quality things I do as well. Like having the right tool for the job, and sometimes the right tool for the job is a very affordable brush. So I've used them, and at this point we ought to have stock in them. We've bought so many of them, and they're cheap. Like when we first bought them, they were like $1 a piece, and they may still be that cheap. I don't know, but we have a variety of different sizes, and they're really good. And if you clean them, they'll last you a good little while too. And then if you tear them up and ruin them, you're only out $1 or $2, or at least when we bought ours. So not the end of the world. That said, I do still favor my Army Painter Masterclass dry brushes. I think that's some of the best for the price. I don't know why. I just like them. I like them better than the Rosemary & Company, and the Rosemary & Company ones are almost the exact same, but for some reason just those Army Painter ones do well. And I'm not a huge fan of all the Army Painter paints, but like that brush is good, or set of brushes is good. And I've got their speed paints. I think their speed paints are good from Army Painter. But the majority of my painting's done with Pro Acrylic these days. So I like where that's at. And one of the things I want to do on some of these is have like a little white stripe somewhere will be a nice juxtaposition on these. I'm not sure where I want to put them yet, but I think I want to because I think it'll look neat. Maybe like on the leg, and then we'll put a number or something. Because the legs are different, it's going to be in like different spots all the time. Like his, I feel like a number is going to look really nice right there. So we'll see what I decide to come up with. Yeah. That said, before we sign off today, I do want to try out this bright jade and put a little bit on one of these minis just to test out highlights and see if it's needs to be like mixed to get a little brighter or not. I suspect it may be a skosh too light or too dark to count as an edge highlight. We'll see, and we'll start on our bro here that was getting all the regular highlights before, and we'll just see how these look. So let's grab like right in here. And that's my notification that it has been over an hour. So I know actually that does look pretty good. And we'll probably exaggerate a little bit of that and have it hit the underside too. And then we've got these like little ribs on the underside of them. So we'll try and hit that. It does show up obviously a little better on the darker underside parts here. Which leads me to believe for the brighter bright spots on the top of the mini, we might have to go a skosh lighter on this. We'll see. Just bounce around a little bit and see how we feel about the color. Question is, do I want to drop like a little extra dribble of white in that? And we'll just keep playing a little bit and we'll see. Still feels just a smidge subtle, so we're going to grab just a little bit of bold titanium white. And we're going to see how it looks if we mix a little in. Just grab just a little dribble of that. Yeah, that is considerably lighter. So let's grab this, and if we do like a more extreme highlight on the edge here. Yep. I think that's our secret sauce right there. We do two-stage highlight on the torso, where we come in with that that brighter highlight, but we focus it on one side. So it adds some intensity, but we've still got that regular edge that goes all the way across. I think that is going to be what we do. And I do this all the time where I'll do like a little test spots on a mini and kind of try and get the process where I want it to be. And then we'll carry it over on the rest of the mini. The downside is since this is the process I think I'm going to take, it's going to make edge highlighting take longer because I'm going to want to do the regular edge first, and then I'm going to want to do this bright edge on the peak, which means we're going to be coming back in to do that. So it's going to add a layer of tedium, but hopefully it'll be worth it in the end. Considering I'm trying to pitch this as a custom faction for work, seems like maybe this is an area where we suck it up and we don't mind that extra effort, right? Forge that narrative after all, which was kind of the focus of today's little hobby ramble and video. We'll get you out there, focused on more than what's on the surface. Yep. Alright, like how that's looking. That's pretty cool. Let's get up a little tighter on them so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about here. So you can see, like, did edge highlight there, and then, oh, there we go. Focus for me, camera. Edge highlight all the way across, and then we went in for the extremes on the side. So, yeah. That said, folks, I think we've come in over budget on time once again, as we do. I didn't get to come back in and do the extra step on these that I was going to do, but we did get our washes done on all of our steel rift, and now on to the edge highlight stage. So, on that note, we'll see what I can get done. We'll see what we have in store for the hobby chat series moving forward. If you guys enjoy this, please sound off in the comments below. Even more so, if you feel like this helped get you motivated, or if you're already painting and you want to add some extra sprinkles to the secret sauce that might help you get people motivated, sound off in the comments below as well. As always, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed this, get in there in the comments, hit the like and subscribe. And as always, please keep rolling those dice, keep painting your models, and I will catch you guys next time.
If you made it this far, you're probably a viewer that already hits that like button when you see a video come up. You're probably already a subscriber, and you probably jump into the comments down below to help support the channel, to help support that algorithm. But if you're looking for some other ways to help support the channel too, make sure you check the description down below. Maybe you want to pick up some paints from Monument Hobbies. That's my paint of choice. The Pro Acrylic line is chef's kiss, good stuff. Maybe you want to check out some of the offerings from Death Row Designs, where I work in my day job. We got plenty of 3D printed products, as well as MDF terrain, some of the stuff that I have designed myself and we play with here on the channel. And if you're looking to bolster your Battletech ranks, miniatures, and offerings, make sure you check out Bobby from Fortress Miniatures and Games. He's one of the main supporters of the channel as well, and supporting any of these companies helps support what I do and helps to ensure that I can continue to bring content to all of you. If you want to become a super supporter, I highly recommend you guys check out the Patreon. You guys give that extra little edge to help push more content out, and I really do appreciate that. And my ultimate goal on the channel is to continue to be able to not only put out the content we have now, but to get to a point where you can put out more content later, whether that be battle reports or painting tutorials or just more rambles, anything at all. I'd like to be doing more content for you. This is something that I enjoy. I like being able to cast a light into the darkness to bring a little bit of hobby positivity to all of you and make you feel good, and also enjoy playing games myself. As we do the final sign off here though, I do want to go ahead and switch on over and do the scroll of awesome to showcase all the Patreon supporters, the super supporters of the channel, to give them some recognition for helping support what I do. Thank you guys so much, and I will catch you guys next time.